The only reporter there, why Jay Slater's inquest farce deepens the family's agony and leaves us all in the dark. The air in Tenerife that morning tasted of dust and despair. Down in the Barranco de la Cruz ravine, a place already etched in infamy, the grim search had ended. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I was the only journalist who'd managed to follow the faint, grim trail of official radio chatter and desperate local whispers deep into that unforgiving terrain. When they finally lifted the stretcher, swathed in the stark, unmistakable black plastic of death, the silence wasn't respectful, it was suffocating, broken only by the crunch of boots on volcanic scree and the low thrum of flies already gathering in the oppressive heat. Jay Slater had been found. But as I stood there, sweat stinging my eyes, notebook damp in my clammy hand, I felt no sense of closure, only the heavy premonition that this was merely the end of the beginning. The real torment, the bureaucratic purgatory that masquerades as justice, was about to descend on a family already shattered beyond comprehension. And the inquest? It wasn't an answer. It was a slap in the face, a farce that deepened their pain and left the crucial questions swirling like toxic dust in that ravine. The discovery itself was brutal in its isolation. No media circus, no live feeds, just the harsh reality of search and rescue volunteers, grim-faced civil guard officers, and the brutal landscape that had claimed a young life. Seeing that black shroud emerge from the scrubland was a visceral punch. This wasn't a headline anymore, it was a broken son, a lost friend, a life extinguished far from home. My report that day was stripped bare, devoid of speculation, heavy with the weight of witnessed finality. I thought, perhaps naively, that finding Jay would bring a measure of peace, or at least a clear path to understanding for his devastated mother, Debbie, and his heartbroken father, Warren. I was catastrophically wrong. The descent into the inquest felt like stepping into a different, colder ravine, one carved by indifference and procedure. Held remotely, a decision that itself felt like an insult to a grieving family needing tangible presence, the proceedings were a masterclass in sterile evasion. The pathologist's report, delivered with detached clinical precision via video link, was a recitation of biological facts. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head and torso. Location, consistent with a fall from height. Time, estimated days before discovery. Toxicology, traces of cocaine and alcohol, consistent with recreational use prior to his death. Critically, what it didn't say screamed louder than the clinical jargon. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. The how and the why of the fall. Was he pushed? Did he stumble? Was he disoriented? Chased? The terrain was treacherous, yes, but the report offered no insight into the mechanism beyond the obvious result. Was there evidence of a struggle on the path above? Footprints? Broken foliage suggesting a specific trajectory? Silence. The missing hours, those critical hours between Jay's panicked last phone call to his friend Lucy, describing being lost, thirsty, phone on 1%, surrounded by cacti and having no water, and his death remained a terrifying void. The inquest did nothing to illuminate them. What happened in that canyon between the call and the fatal impact? Did he try to climb? Did he become delirious? Did he encounter anyone? The pathologist could only speak to the end result, not the agonizing journey. The context of his state, while the toxicology was noted, its interpretation was absent. Was the level consistent with impairment? Disorientation? How long before death were the substances likely consumed? Was there any indication these substances directly contributed to the fall, or were they merely incidental findings? The report stated facts but shied away from causation, leaving a gaping hole for speculation and blame. The question of negligence or foul play, the coroner explicitly stated there was no evidence of third-party involvement. But how definitively was that established? Was the scene thoroughly examined for signs of a struggle or other persons? Were potential witnesses in the sparse surrounding area properly canvassed? The blanket statement felt less like a conclusion drawn from exhaustive investigation and more like a convenient endpoint dictated by the limitations of a remote, box-ticking exercise. For a family desperate to know if their son was alone in his final moments or if something more sinister occurred, this pronouncement, delivered without detailed supporting evidence presented to them, felt hollow, dismissive. This is where the inquest transformed from a necessary procedure into a soul-crushing farce for the Slater family. Imagine their torment. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. 1. The sterility of remote justice. Grieving requires presence, ritual, the shared weight of sorrow in a physical space. Forcing Debbie, Warren, and their loved ones to absorb the clinical details of their son's violent death via a video screen, likely in some impersonal solicitor's office or their own home, a place now forever haunted, is inhumane. It robbed them of the dignity of confronting the process directly, of feeling that the system was fully engaged with their unimaginable pain. It felt like an afterthought, an administrative chore being dispatched with minimal effort. 2. The absence of narrative. Humans crave narrative, especially in tragedy. We need to understand the sequence, the cause, the why. The inquest provided biological facts but no story. It confirmed what happened in the most basic sense: he fell, he died, but offered nothing on how or why he came to be falling in that desolate place. For parents, this lack of a coherent narrative is torture. Their minds filled a void with endless, horrific scenarios, each more unbearable than the last. The inquest, instead of providing answers, amplified the terrifying silence of those missing hours. 3. The lingering stigma. By stating the presence of drugs and alcohol without contextualizing their potential role or definitively ruling them in or out as a primary factor, the inquest inadvertently fueled the very online narrative that had plagued the search, the victim blaming. Trolls and conspiracy theorists now had official mention to twist. For the family, already battling this online vitriol, hearing these facts stated clinically, without a robust counter-narrative explaining why it didn't necessarily mean recklessness caused his death, felt like a betrayal. It left Jay exposed to judgment, shifting focus from finding answers to apportioning blame based on incomplete information. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. 4. The lack of scrutiny. An inquest should be a forum for questioning, for testing the evidence. The remote nature and apparent rush to conclude, a common complaint about overseas inquests handled by British coroners, seemed to preclude rigorous exploration. Could the family's legal team properly probe the pathologist? Could they challenge the interpretation of the scene investigation, or lack thereof, by Spanish authorities? It felt like a one-way information dump, not an investigative process seeking truth. The verdict of accidental death felt preordained by the limitations of the process itself, not by a comprehensive examination of all possibilities. The unanswered questions, the lingering poison. So, what do we know? We know Jay Slater died tragically in a ravine in Tenerife. We know he suffered injuries consistent with a fall. We know he had taken substances some time before. What we don't know is everything that truly matters. What precisely happened in the ravine? Did he slip? Did he jump in desperation? Was he disoriented? The terrain dictates the possibility of an accident, but the inquest confirmed how it happened only in the broadest, most unsatisfying terms. Why was he so deep in that inaccessible location? His last known location was miles away. How did he traverse that distance, through such difficult terrain, especially if disoriented or impaired? Was he trying to find help? Was he lost? Was there another reason? Was he truly alone? The coroner says yes, based on evidence presented. But what was that evidence? How thoroughly was the possibility investigated, especially given the initial mystery surrounding his disappearance and the rental of the Airbnb? The family's desperate need for certainty on this point remains unfulfilled. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Could anything have been done differently in the search? While not strictly the inquest's purview, the question hangs heavy. Did delays, miscommunications, or the chaotic media/TikTok sleuth interference impact the chances of finding him alive? The inquest offered no reflection on this. This vacuum of understanding isn't just unsatisfying, it's actively harmful. It leaves the Slater family trapped in a nightmare of what-ifs. It allows the online conspiracy theories, the wild accusations, the grotesque victim blaming, to fester and grow, constantly re-traumatizing them. It denies them the fundamental human need to understand the final moments of their child. The accidental death verdict, delivered via this remote, sterile process, feels less like a conclusion and more like a bureaucratic shrug. He fell, he died, nothing more to see here. Case closed. But for Debbie, Warren, and Jay's loved ones, the case will never be closed. The inquest, far from bringing relief, has become another source of anguish. It has amplified the mystery it was supposed to solve, deepened the wounds it was meant to help heal, and demonstrated, with chilling clarity, how the machinery of death investigation can sometimes inflict its own unique brand of pain. Standing alone in that ravine, I witnessed the end of a physical search. Watching the inquest unfold, I witnessed the beginning of an endless, unanswered question haunting a family. The real tragedy isn't just Jay's death, it's the ongoing torment of not knowing why, compounded by a system that seemed utterly indifferent to their need for answers. The mystery isn't solved, it's merely been stamped accidental and filed away, leaving a family drowning in the unsaid and the unknown. The farce isn't over, for them, it's a life sentence. Subscribe the channel to get such videos.